Hey guys, so this will be our first little mini lesson for our vocab for this year. So I'm going to kind of start off by giving you a bit of an intro to our textbook, which you guys should have already picked up. If not, then please let me know so we can get that figured out for you. This is the first lesson. It's called Lección Preliminar, so it's technically called like the preliminary lesson, so it's not even like a Unit 1, Chapter 1. It's like the foundation lesson. So this is in our textbook. I just have the online version here. I'm gonna zoom in so you guys can see a little bit. I do recommend you have your book with you right now though to follow along, because it might be a little bit difficult to kind of have you see on a tiny screen. So you're gonna end up going to page 2. If you have your book, it's not like the actual second page of our textbook. You have to flip through a few pages because we have a few maps, we have like a table of contents, we have other information. So get to the actual page 2, like the numerical, not the Roman numeral one, sorry. The top of our page says Hola, ¿qué tal? That's like the name of our theme for this lesson, this vocab lesson. This vocab is going to most likely take us about the first week to kind of get acquainted with and get used to. It's all going to be on greetings and farewells, so how you can say hi to someone, ask them how they're doing, kind of start a conversation. So I'm going to go through all the vocab, show you how our textbook works, and then you guys can always come back to this video if you need extra help, or you have your book to kind of look at stuff too. So if you're on page 2, you have a few pictures. They look kind of like little comics of people talking. There is an audio on my online one, so I'll be playing this for you guys, but I'm still going to read and go through all this on my own. So you just kind of hear two people saying the same thing, if that helps. So first, to let you know, if you look on your page already, like we have an A conversation with 2 girls and a B conversation with 2 boys. The A conversation is all in blue and it's pretty much bolded. And then the B conversation is like half blue, half bolded, and the rest are like normal font black. The reason for this is any new vocab word that we have in our book is going to be blue and bolded like what we see in A. And then if it's a word or a phrase or anything that we already know, then the book no longer keeps it like in the bolded blue. It's going to be just regular black type. So for example, A is the first Spanish you get in book, period, so everything's going to be in blue because all of it's new. But then as we know these words, you'll see kind of the rest of these conversations as we go through them today. The words are going to start being black because they're going to be words that you have already heard before, or at least have gone over in the book. So just to get that out of the way so you guys know why it is. So I'm going to start you guys off with conversation A. This has 2 girls. They are greeting each other. It is typical in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries that you greet people with like a hug and a kiss. So here, it's just 2 girls greeting each other hello and giving each other a kiss on the cheek. So that is normal. Don't be weird. To begin, we have the girl in the pink. She is on crutches. She is starting the conversation for the comic A. I'm going to call them comics even though they're not. So she says hola and then asks the question, ¿Cómo estás? If you notice, the ¿Cómo estás has 2 sets of question marks on it. First one being upside down, but it's still a question mark. In Spanish, this is what happens for questions and for exclamations. Exclamations are just like when you yell something out, and we're going to come across those in a little bit too. So think of them like the 2 question marks or the 2 exclamation points when we get to it. Think of them as like parentheses. In Spanish, you kind of like group together, or you like block off, I guess you could say, the question specifically that you're asking. So for example, in this first bubble that the girl says, she says hola. Hola means hi. So that's not a question. She's just saying hi or hello, either way. And then she's asking ¿Cómo estás? So because that's blocked off, that's the question. That's asking, how are you? Then her friend responds with, the girl in the striped shirt, she says bien, and then asks the question. That's why it's grouped together. She's asking ¿Y tú? Which just means and you. So E, the letter Y, it's a whole word in Spanish, and it just means and. And tú is a word for you. It's one of the words for you. You're going to come across a second word that also means you, but it's used with like adults or like people older than you that you need to be more polite, respectful to. So with friends, kind of how you see here, 2 girls around the same age, 2 guys around the same age, they're going to be using the word tú, which means you. So we have 2 sets of questions. The how are you, and then the and you. So after she asks, The girl in the pink shirt responds again, and she says mal. No question, just a statement. You can probably tell what mal means based off her current situation. Mal means bad. So she's saying she's bad. She does not feel very good. I'll play these for you guys. Let me make sure my audio's as loud as it probably can be for this. I'll stop it there. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I'll play it, but it's the same thing I just read.
Ah.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bien.
¿Y tú?
Mal.
You can hear it in her voice. She's bad. Does not feel good at all. Okay, so for part B, this time we have two boys. We have Juan, we have Miguel. So if you notice, a couple of words now are in black because we've heard these words before. Or, like you see the word Miguel, that's never going to be blue because that's not a vocab word. It's just somebody's name. So that one's never going to be bolded. So Juan says, or he exclaims, if you notice, it has the two blocking off exclamation points. It's the same like I mentioned for the question mark. So he's kind of like yelling it out like, Hola, Miguel, or like, hey, Miguel, or hi, Miguel. He asks another question. It's blocked off by the parentheses, or the question marks again. He asks, ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal is a more informal, like, what's up? So he's not asking him, how are you? He's just kind of asking, what's up? What's going on? So Miguel responds with, Hola, ¿qué pasa? He says, what's happening? So one friend asks him, what's up? Other friend says, what's happening? I'll play this one for you guys before we move on.
B.
Hola, Miguel. ¿Qué tal?
Hola, ¿qué pasa?
There we go. So we're going to have some farewells. Then we're going to try on the second page, because you are going to go onto the second page, the adult version, the formal, more polite, respectful version of these greetings. So for C, we have Juan, we have Anna. This time, if you can tell, they're kind of walking away from each other. He's turning back and waving, so they're going to be saying bye. These are going to be some farewells or ways to say goodbye. So Juan exclaims, he yells out, right? That's why the two exclamation points are there. He says, Hasta luego, Anna, as he kind of waves. Hasta luego just means see you later. So he's saying, see you later, Anna. Anna responds with the same thing. We already heard it, which is why it's black. She just says, hasta luego. See you later.
C.
Hasta luego, Ana.
Hasta luego.
There we go. And our last one for this page. We have D. If you notice, these are two adults. They seem to be saying bye to each other, maybe after work. They're both dressed pretty professionally. We have Señorita Daza that says adios. It's blue. It's a new word. You've probably heard of it before, though. It just means goodbye, like a basic goodbye. And then Señor Ortega says adios, señorita. The word he says that's blue, señorita, is not a goodbye word. It just means miss. So she says goodbye, and then Mr. Ortega says goodbye, miss.
D.
Adiós.
Adiós, señorita.
There we go. So this is technically already half of the vocab. I recommend you guys go through when I do these little videos and kind of copy down some of your notes as well. It'll save you time than having to go back and rewrite everything for yourself. But we do have a second half, so keep your notes out. Okay, so on this page, which is page 3 on your textbook as well, you have 4 more pictures. However, on this page, if you notice, at the top of each of these little pictures or conversations, you have a clock. Some have a sun behind it, some have a moon behind it. And then again, based off the picture, you can tell if it's like daytime or nighttime. So these clocks/times will be important because the conversation is going to focus around if it's like a good morning or a good afternoon or a good night/good evening conversation. So the first one is E. It has Mr. Martinez and Miss Ramos. And most of this is blue, except the name, right? Because those are names, they're not vocab words. So if you look at the clock, and the little sun behind it is going to be 7. So because the picture is also light and it's bright, we're going to assume that it's 7 in the morning. And they're 2 adults, maybe getting to work or something. So Mr. Martinez says, Buenos días, señora Ramos. ¿Cómo está usted? So the buenos días is what the clock is here for. Buenos días means good morning. So again, based off the information, we assumed it was going to be a morning. He says, "Good morning, Miss Ramos," or Mrs. Ramos, and then asks a question. This question that is blocked off by the question mark, I keep calling it parentheses now, says or is asking, "¿Cómo está usted?" It's really similar to the question we had on the first page, page 2, but that one was shorter. The one that we first saw on page 2 was "¿Cómo estás?" with a little s. This one on conversation E does not have the s, and instead it has a third word that says usted. This is the second way that you can say the word you in Spanish, like you. The word usted means you, but it's used for adults, people who are older than you, people that you have to be extra nice, like polite or respectful to. So think of it like your boss, or maybe like someone that you don't know very well, or someone that you're trying to show like extra respect for. So here in this picture, it might be that they're coworkers, it might be that he's her boss, we don't know. But they're two adults, so they're going to be like polite to each other, especially if they're like at work. So, ¿Cómo está usted? Is the more formal, that's what the actual term is. It's called formal conversation. But this is the formal way, or the more polite way, of asking the same question, how are you? If you notice, like I mentioned S previously, this question does not have the S. So if you're going to be asking a question in this formal way, you do not use S's. So, ¿Cómo estás? Like the previous one, is going to be kept for like friends, like classmates, or like siblings, or people around your age. And then ¿Cómo está? This one will be used for people who are older than you. So he's saying, "Good morning, Miss Ramos. How are you?" Miss Ramos responds with regular. And you can probably tell what that word means. It just means regular. We don't exactly say regular when someone asks us how we're doing, but it just means like we're fine, we're normal, we're regular, we're okay. So similar to that first conversation where the friend asked "y tú," this time we're asking "y usted," because again, it still means and you, it's just a different type of you because they're going to be adults having this conversation. So Ms. Ramos says, "Fine, and you?" Regular. ¿Y usted? And then Mr. Martinez says, "Más o menos." Más o menos literally translates to more or less. And so he's just trying to say like he's so-so. He's in the middle. He's not good, he's not bad. I'll play this one before we move on.
Buenos días, señora Ramos. ¿Cómo está usted?
Regular. ¿Y usted?
Más o menos.
Good. So then we have F. We have friend. If you take a look at the clock in the back, it is 3 o'clock afternoon because it's not nighttime. Juan is Juan is saying buenas tardes. So if at the 7 o'clock picture we said buenos días, and at the 3 o'clock picture we say buenas tardes, what do you think that might be saying? Hopefully you thought good afternoon, because that's what it is. So Juan says buenas tardes, or good afternoon, and he asks ¿Cómo estás? We know that question. We know the S there is because they are friends and they're being like informal with each other. They don't have to be super polite. They're not in like a job situation, and they're close in age, so that would all make sense. After Juan asks, "How are you? ¿Cómo estás?" Esteban responds with muy bien. This is also similar to something you had on page 2. On page 2, you just had bien, which was good. So muy bien just means very good. So he's saying that he feels very good. And I'll play this one.
F.
Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien.
Good. The last two, and then we're done. This is farewell, or ways to say goodbye. You have two versions. Our time changes a tiny bit, so one's actually going to be kind of a hi and a way to say goodbye, even though it's nighttime. The first one for G is with Señora Acevedo and Diana. If you take a look at the clock, it is at 8 o'clock. It is nighttime, but she had to go somewhere. I'm assuming her job. They both look to be dressed pretty professionally. So Señora Acevedo says, "Hola, buenas noches." Buenas noches translates to good night. I know that sounds odd because we don't exactly say hi to someone with a good night. That's more of a bye, or because you're going to bed. So buenas noches can technically have two definitions. It can mean good evening, which we do use as a hi, and it can mean good night. So here, if you notice, as you kind of look at the G and H, they're going to use the same phrase, buenas noches, but it's technically going to mean two different things. So she starts with, on G, hola, buenas noches. So she's saying, hi, good evening. Diana responds with, good evening, señora, or buenas noches, señora. I'll play this.
G.
Hola. Buenas noches. Buenas noches, señora.
And then the last one. Still the same situation. We have Diana. She is leaving now because if you look at the time, it's 9. So she stayed for a little bit and then had to go home. Here you have Mr. Garcia, Senor Garcia, and Diana. So if you notice, Senor Garcia says the same phrase again, but this time he's saying it to say bye. So he says, buenas noches, Diana, or good night, Diana, because they're probably both going home. And Diana says, hasta mañana, Senor Garcia. Hasta mañana, new phrase. That just means until tomorrow, like see you tomorrow. So she says, see you tomorrow, Senor, which is just Mr., and then Garcia.
Buenas noches, Diana.
Hasta mañana, señor Garcia.
There you go. So this technically is going to be the first vocab list, I guess you could call it, for us. All the blue words are going to be what we're going over and learning how to put them into these little conversations and knowing how to respond to people when they ask us these questions, or how to change the conversation if you're talking to like an adult and not have the letter S, or like to friends and you need to use the letter S, or when to say the correct form of you, like tú with friends, or usted with like people you don't know very well or people older than you, or like a more professional setting. So before I even log off for you guys, I just want you to know, in your book, I'm going to have to do this a bit differently because it's an online version, but in your book, for every chapter, they're called lessons, but for every chapter that we do, if you flip through the pages towards the end of the chapter, there's a section, I think I'm pretty sure it's blue, but I'll show you right now. That's called En Resumen, kind of how you can see mine highlighted right here on my little drop down. That's like a review page. En Resumen just means in review. So it's a review page that has your vocab, all the grammar, all like the main topics that we go over in that chapter. So it's a really good study tool, and it has definitions on there too. I'm going to show you what the page looks like, but you're going to have to flip through and find it in your own book for you guys. But for our first lesson that we're going over, it does have all these blue phrases that we've been talking about, and they're categorized. So there we go. So for this first section, we've learned how to say hi and how to say bye and ask people how they're feeling. So if you notice where it says, oh, it was red, my bad, I thought it was blue. Where it says vocabulario, it's categorized by that. It says greet people and say goodbye. So these are the greetings that we talked about. I had all of them here. See, and this is why I suggest you guys take notes, because some things are a tiny bit different. Like the buenas noches is good evening, but it still means good night. Like when you're going to go to sleep and you want to tell someone good night, you would still say buenas noches. So add that to your notes so you know that there's a difference, or that they mean the same thing. You have ways that you can just say bye. So like the goodbye, the good night that we have here. See you later, see you tomorrow, and then all the different ways that you can ask someone, how are you? I talked about being formal, polite, respectful. Here you'll find just the word formal, because that's what the category of that type of question is. The opposite category, like the ones for friends that you're more close to, is actually familiar or informal. They go by both. So if you ever see the word familiar, think of it like someone that you're familiar with, someone that you're close to that you know well. So just know if there's a question and it changes between like formal or informal, you're going to have a little note on your notes on this page as well. So we have pretty much our first week, which is going to be this. You have everything else that's set up for the entire chapter. So we'll be doing like introductions and introducing somebody to a friend, for example. We're going to be talking about some days of the week. We're going to be asking about phone numbers and then just like general phrases that we need. So for example, let's see where we already had like señor, we already had señora, we already had señorita, like the Mr., Mrs., and Miss. And then see and no, you probably already know. But we're going to go through all of these as well. And then lastly, weather, because we're going to talk about some weather, and asking people where they're from. This is going to be similar to like the making introduction side, because we'll be asking people like, oh, what's your name? Where are you from? How are you? Stuff like that. So just know this page, which is page 25 in your textbook, has like everything for this unit. This entire unit will take us pretty much a month to get through, so we kind of break it up into little sections like this. And for right now, it's this first section, the greet people and say goodbye. So I'll stop you guys here. Always come back to this page if you need some help in your textbook. Rewatch this video if you need to. And then we're going to be using these words to help us kind of the rest of this week and do some of the work that we're going to be doing. All right, I'll see you guys in a bit.